last video, I showed an expert advisor that used the triple channel indicator. The triple channel indicator draws lines at the highest high and the lowest low, and then draws two more lines inside that at predefined percentages. And I'll include links to that last video and to the video showing the indicator code. I'll put all of that in the description. Now, when I tested that last expert advisor, the results were not great. So I have the settings here ready to go. Triple channel expert 1, Euro USD 1 hour chart from January 23 to January 25. In the inputs, I did notice at the last example that there was very little drawdown. So I'm going to update this volume from 0.01 to 0.05. Obviously, that's just going to multiply the result, but it is a bit more realistic in terms of what you might expect to achieve. So with my $1,000 deposit, the indicator settings, 48 periods, 30% from the top line and 30% from the bottom line, one trade at a time, no stop loss, and I'm going to set that to true. I'm going to trail the take profit price. So after 2 years, that's the result. The back test shows $524 profit, or 52% over 2 years. If I change this one setting, one trade at a time, from true to false, now it is able to make multiple trades before a trade is closed. No other settings changed. And now the back test shows a profit of $492, so 49%. Now, before I get to writing the code, which is a very small change to that particular expert advisor, I'm going to show the results from the new version. To briefly explain how the strategy changes with these code changes, here is a chart showing the triple line. There's the upper line, the lower line, and the high and low in the middle. This is a reversion strategy, so I'll be buying when the price breaks the lower line, with options then to take profit at level 1 when it crosses the low line, level 2 crossing the high line, and level 3 when it crosses the upper line. And the opposite, I'll be selling when the price closes above the upper line, with options to take profit at level 1, level 2, or level 3. So this is Triple Channel Expert 2. Everything here is the same. The inputs will look very similar. Period, 2 percentages. I've still got one trade at a time false, no stop loss, and trail the take profit price and the volume at 0.05. There is one additional input, and we'll get to that when I write the code, but this is basically setting where the take profit is taken. And the result with just a few lines of code change is very different, because my profit now is 3,813, or 381% profit. Enough for the introduction. Let's show you how to make these changes to that last expert advisor. I have the editor open now. This is MQL5. I am making these changes on MQL5 in the MQL5 editor, and so the code showing here is for MQL5, but the changes themselves should apply equally to MQL4. So if you have the MQL4 version of this, just follow through the changes and you should be able to apply those to the MQL4 copy. And all I've done so far, I've taken the Triple Channel Expert version 1 from the last video. I've simply renamed that, made a copy as Triple Channel Expert 2, and a minor change here in the comments, and I've just changed this to version 2. No other changes to the code so far. The first thing I'm going to add in here, because I'm now going to allow you to close when the price crosses any of the other levels. So there are 4 levels, 2 outer levels and 2 inner levels. I'm going to allow you to select any of those to close the price at, or any of the other 3, because I'm entering the trade when the price closes outside the outer boundary. I could simply have an input as an integer, and you can enter number 1, 2, or 3, but then you could easily make a mistake and enter some number that's incorrect. So to avoid that, I'm going to set up an enum with the level numbers. So this enum take profit level, and I'm set the levels 1, 2, and 3, and I've added these labels to them. These work in the same way as the labels on inputs. So if I have an input of the enum TP level, you won't see these values in the drop down for that input. You will see these comments instead. So 3 levels there, 1, 2, or 3. And remember, level 1 is going to be the closest to the entry point. So if the price crosses the upper level, then level 1 is going to be the high, which is the first one below that upper level. If the price crosses the lower level, then level 1 is going to be the low, which is the first one above that level. The indicator path is the same. I'm leaving the values for these inputs of the period, the upper and lower, the same, but they're obviously something you can change to suit your strategy. I'm going to add one more input here, which is where you can enter this take profit level. So it's an input enum TP level, input take profit level, and the default is going to be level 2, but you can set it to whatever you like. There's no need to change any of the other inputs, but I will just change this comment to take or triple channel 2. I still have a handle and I still have the 4 buffers, and the numbers of those buffers don't change. The signal offset though does change. If you look at the way this indicator works, the close for bar number 1 can never be greater than the high for bar number 1, and the close can also never be lower than the low, because the outer layers, the upper and the lower, always go to the high and low points on those candles. So what I'm going to do is change the signal offset to 2. So now it is possible for the close price of bar number 1 to be higher than the upper of bar number 2. And it's possible for that close price of bar number 1 to be lower than the close price of bar number 2. So I've just changed the signal offset to 2. Nothing changes in the onInit function. Nothing changes in onDinit. Everything here in onTick is the same until we get down to this point. So I'm still testing the buy count single trade and the sell count single trade, but this condition will change and this function call will change. So I no longer care about the open prices, so I can just remove that. All I care about is whether the price closes outside the range. So now if rates close is greater than the upper value, so I've gone outside the range, and then I'm going to open a position, but I'm not going to open a buy, I'm going to open a sell. And because I need to deal with the different levels where I'm going to be taking profit, I'm going to pass all of these values into that function. And now I do the same for the sell trade if the rates close is less than the lower value. And then I'm going to buy. So that's all of the changes in onTick. Obviously now I need to change the open position function. Before I get to that, you'll see that previously I had this get stop loss price function, which is here, where I was simply setting the take profit price based on the high value or the low value. Now the take profit price is a little more variable because you can choose one of 3 different levels. So I'm going to create a get take profit price function. And there's the function. It has the int type and then all 4 values, upper, high, low, and lower. I start with a simple initialization of the variable take profit price equals 0 and then a switch statement for that take profit level. So if it's level 1, I'm simply saying the take profit price is, if the type is a buy, then the low value, and if it's not a buy, it must be a sell, so the high value. And the same syntax, if it's a level 2, then I'm choosing between high and low value, and if it's level 3, then it's the upper or the lower, depending whether it's buy or sell. Finally, I call this normalized double on the take profit price, and then return that. So now in this update take profit stop loss function, the take profit price, I'll just make a call to that function. So get take profit price, I've got the type, the upper, high, low, and lower value. The get stop loss price function doesn't need to change. I'm still passing in an open price and a take profit price. It doesn't matter how I've calculated that take profit, it is there. And if I'm going to be using a stop loss, or if I'm not using a stop loss, then I'll still return 0. And if I am, then it's still a factor of the difference between the open and the take profit price. So no change there. So then in open position, I've obviously changed the arguments. So I'm no longer receiving just a take profit price. I'm getting all 4 values. Open price, no change to that. But now the take profit price, because it's not being passed as an argument, this is the same function that I called in the update take profit stop loss. Take profit price, type, and then all the 4 values. Get take profit price type and those 4 values. And once again, because this function has a normalized double, the same as get stop loss price has a normalized double, I can just remove that line. There's no change in the position open, or if this is MetaTrader 4, there'll be no change in the order send statement. His new bar doesn't change and get buffer value doesn't change. It is still different between MetaTrader 5 and 4, but no change from the version 1 code. Let's see if I just do a compile. Type is not being passed into this function, so position info.position type. Okay, that's it. And now we can go and run that test. So here I'm set up for Triple Channel Expert 2. It's a 1 hour from January 23 to January 25, so 2 years of data. And I'm starting with a deposit of 1,000 US dollars. For the inputs, I've still got 48, 30, and 30. Take profit level is level 2, that's the default, but I'll just start with level 1. One trade at a time is false, stop loss is false, and trail the take profit is true. And I'll set the volume to 0.05. And there you can see some movements against, but in general, the sawtooth pattern is climbing. If I check the backtest result, profit of 1,310, so 131% profit. Change this input. I'll change that from level 1 to level 2. Everything else is the same. The pattern looks quite different. A lot less of the sawtooth, and that's mainly because going to level 2 means that at those points where maybe closing at level 1 ran into a loss, level 2 was still a profit. So a much straighter line here, but it also meant that when that big move happened in July 23, I was caught out by a lot more, so a much bigger dip here. But it has made up that gap over time. And now if I look at the backtest results, profit of $3,813 on a $1,000 deposit, so 381% profit there. If I just try to push it a little further and go to level 3, see things were going very well here until August 24, and then a bad stretch with several losses. And the result is that the profit's only 3,576. And of course, the reason for that, although I'm making a bigger profit on each trade by going to level 3, more of those trades are turning into a loss because there is an opportunity for the price to reverse before it gets to level 3. But that's not the only thing you can change. If I go level 2 and change these numbers to 40%, for example, actually I'll change them to 20%. So I'm moving the two inner lines closer to the outer lines, which means that level 2 is actually further away from the entry point than it was when these were 30. And the pattern's very similar, but now the backtest result, $4,832, so 483% profit. So there's plenty of opportunity there to play around with any of these numbers to adjust the profitability of this particular expert. And obviously, I'm only testing this on one symbol. I'm testing on Euro USD. The results from other symbols could be very different. There's a very simple change to the expert we had in the last video, using exactly the same indicator, so the same data being fed in, and a very different end result. So if this has been useful to you, please click the like button because it will help the channel a lot. And if you want to see more of these videos, click subscribe and then click the bell icon to be notified when more videos are released. Thank you for watching.